Well, thank you, Dean. I also would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We're pretty excited about our new feature. Like Dean said, it is kind of the driving force behind our newest release. And again, it is just the beginning of this feature. We see us extending this feature in future releases and adding more features, more flexibility to the template designer. But before I get into it, I just want to briefly kind of talk about our design philosophy in R&D, because I think it'll help you guys better understand why the things are the way they are within the system. One of our core philosophies within dotCMS R&D team is we don't ever like to strap ourselves down to one framework, one product, one standard. What we always want to do is make sure that we are as flexible as possible and able to adapt to whatever technologies come down the road. And the template designer is a great example of that. We could have standardized on a single HTML framework, such as Bootstrap or Foundation, but if that were to change or one of those frameworks would have fallen out of favor a year from now, we would have kind of gone down a path that we couldn't come back from. So though it would have made our lives easier and probably would have made the template designer a little bit more powerful out of the box, what we've done is given you the flexibility to use any HTML framework you would like in the template designer. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the template designer. There are three things I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you how to actually use a template or use a theme that's actually in the dotCMS starter site and create a new template using the template designer. I'm going to show you how to upload a new theme to the dotCMS, and I'm actually even going to show you how to download a theme, a flat HTML theme from a site like Template Monster, and actually convert that into a dotCMS theme. So to get started, I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but this is our new theme gallery on our website, and you can get to it at dotcms.com, and it has a couple themes that you can download. We also included a couple starter themes, including the Bootstrap starter theme, Foundation starter theme, and the YAML starter theme. And what these are just kind of starting points for anyone who's looking to develop or design their own themes. So what I have is a local host running here on my desktop that I'm going to go ahead and log into. And the first thing we're going to do is actually create a template. So for those of you who are not that familiar with the dotCMS, our templates under the site browser, when you first log in, templates are actually under that drop-down. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And what you see here is we have two different icons. It may be a little bit hard to see on my screen, but we actually have all the top templates are actually using have this little pencil next to them. And what that indicates is that these templates were made using the template designer. Where down at the bottom, you'll see that we have a template that does not have a pencil next to it. It's got the old template icon. And what this means is that this template is actually what we're calling the advanced templates. This was actually hand-coded just like you would in previous versions of dotCMS, and these templates all use the new template designer. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll see the Add Template button. And when you click on it, you actually get the choice whether you'd like to build a new template using the template designer or the advanced templates. So let's go ahead and click on the template designer, and we're presented with a graphical user interface to start creating our template. And over here on the left hand side are basically our controls. Up here we get to title our template. I'm just going to call it test template. And the first thing we get to choose is which theme we would like to use. And the dotCMS automatically generates a list of themes that are in the system that we have permissions to. So based on my roles, these are the two themes that come with the starter site that I have permissions to. For anyone who's played around with the starter site, the default theme that's being used when you first install it is actually called the Quest theme. So for this demo, we're going to go ahead and create a new theme using the also included OpenBank theme. Our next choice is we get to decide whether we want it to be responsive, a fixed width, or a fluid width. We're going to go ahead and choose responsive. Then our next choice is sidebar, whether we'd like to include a sidebar on the left or the right. And I think one of the things a lot of people are going to notice first is that we use percentages. And I know a lot of the HTML frameworks are now based on grids, but we thought percentages gave you the most flexibility because they, on the back end we can interpret what a percentage means and translate that to what that means for a specific grid or a grid framework. But we felt it made the most sense, again, for better or for worse, we felt it made the most sense to the end user, somebody who's not familiar with HTML, who wouldn't understand why we have, what do you mean a grid span 2 or a grid span 4? We felt percentages were more universally understood. So for this one, we're not going to include a sidebar. Our next choice is to include a header or a footer. And for this example, where default is you would obviously want to include both the header and the footer. Now, down here where it says body rows, this is really the meat of the template designer. This is where you get to really design what you would like your layouts to be. You can add rows, you can split your rows. You can keep adding rows, splitting them more. You can remove rows. And once we've added our rows, if you noticed over here in the UI, we get these little buttons called Add Containers. This is where we're actually going to just click on the Add Container, and we're going to actually be able to add containers to our templates. And containers, again, for those who aren't that familiar with the dotCMS, these are the editable, we're defining the editable areas of our web page. These are the blocks in which you're going to drop your content into, or drop your widgets, drop your videos, drop your assets into. These are the editable places within your page. So we're going to go ahead and start adding the containers to our template. And as you notice, my drop-down list, as I add a container, the drop-down list is removing the possibility of me adding that same container twice. And that's because a container should never occur more than once in a template. So we're kind of safeguarding a user from accidentally adding a container twice. So now that we have our template laid out, we have our containers within the page and defined our editable areas. We're going to go take a look at the next tab, which is the Properties tab. Up here we can add a description that would describe the template. Again, these two features fields as well as description and screen capture. These are actually more used primarily for end users when they're going to create a new page. This will help them kind of explain or give you an opportunity to explain to the end user what this template's used for, actually provide a screenshot image of what this template will actually look like or should look like on the page. But again, these are both optional fields, so we're going to move on. The preview, this is actually kind of a neat feature. What this is allowing us to do, again, we've taken dummy content and dropped it into the containers, the editable areas where we had set up in the previous design template tab. And we're just giving you an opportunity to kind of browse around the theme, make sure this is the template you want, make sure you have the layout you want. And you can actually also preview it and see what it would look like in the different mobile devices. So we have the iPhone mobile, you can see what it would look like on the Retina display of the iPhone, Android. Again, these are just the most common resolutions for the different devices. So now we're happy with this. We're going to come back here. We're going to go ahead and save and publish this. So now, as you see, we have our new test template at the top of the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to go make a new web page and use this template. So we're going to go to our browser tree and we're going to right-click on the folder where we would like to create the page. Click New and click HTML page. And we are going to choose our test template. And go ahead and save and publish that. And as you can see, we now have our test template. We can start dropping content into this page. And basically start building out a page. We can also drop widgets into the page. So if we wanted to add a YouTube video here, we could just add a little widget and get the YouTube video in here. So that's, again, it's very straightforward on how to use a template. And again, we envision this as something that the web developers or front-end developers would be able to pass down or give control to the end users, content editors, of the different departments who possibly would like a different layout or arrange the page in a different way, with still maintaining the same look and feel and controlling the header and the footer of the site, making sure they have, all the features they need, the JavaScript, the CSS, and all of that. So the next thing I'm going to do, so that was great. We had it, we used one of the templates that was up there already. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to actually add a template that we downloaded. Possibly you created it yourself. Possibly you downloaded it from our theme gallery. Somebody provided it to you. I'm going to actually show you how to upload a template. And on my desktop right here, I have this template or a theme I've been working on called .blue. And we can just take a quick look at it. And again, it's a pretty standard looking template. It has your header, and down at the bottom we have a footer, some social tools. If you notice, we have this kind of scroll, continuous scroll, again, just a jQuery plugin. And what we're going to want to do is I'm going to want to upload this theme, this new theme called .blue, to our instance of dotCMS. So I'm going to open up CyberDuck. I'm going to connect to our local host and go to the host I'd like to put this theme on. As you can see here, we have the folder application, and this is actually fairly important because what the system does is it looks in this specific folder path for a valid theme. So inside the application folder, so you have to have the application folder on your root, a root of one of your hosts, and in that you have to have the themes folder. Inside the themes folder is where we're actually going to drag and drop our theme. Give that a second to upload. Okay. So now we have our theme running on the local host. You can see all the files are there. And real quick, just glancing inside, what actually makes up a theme are actually these four VTL files. And the system will actually look for those to make sure it's a valid theme. So up here we have our new theme, and if we come back here to the .cms, what we're going to do is open up this test page again. And rather than editing or creating a new template, what we're going to do is we're just going to come in here, and we're actually going to change the theme of the template. And as you can see, we now have the new header up here. We have the footer. And show you even the subnav. That sub-navigation actually works. The way it actually works is it's looking for H1s on the page. So if I went ahead and made this an H1, saved and published that, you'd see we now have a test section nav. And if I were to go ahead and create this as the, instead of an, change that to an H1. And again, this is just a jQuery plugin. But as you can see, you can start including these types of things in your theme. So that's it. So far we've created a template using a theme that's already been in the .cms. We've uploaded a new theme and applied that to one of our templates. And now what we're going to do is actually create a theme from something we downloaded on the website. So earlier today I downloaded this theme here, and I've downloaded it to my desktop, and it's just a flat HTML file. So if I come over here, you can see it's just here's all my files. Go ahead and open it up. You can see it's just, just like anything you download from Template Monster or whatever. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this theme and convert it to a .cms theme and upload it. So because this is a Bootstrap theme, I downloaded it specifically because it was a Bootstrap theme. I'm going to go to I'm going to go to our website and actually get the starter for the Bootstrap theme. Go ahead and download this. Back to my desktop. Zip it. And as you can see inside, we have the skeleton of what makes a Bootstrap theme. We have the basic files, the VTL files. We have the folder system with the basic Bootstrap stuff. And over here we have our new theme that we would like to create, that we just downloaded from the website. So the first thing in creating a theme is making sure you get all your assets over. So what I'm going to do here is to just simply drag the CSS over to our new theme and make sure we get all the images copied over from our new theme, all the JavaScript, and make sure I'm not missing anything else. They have another plugin over here. I'm going to make sure we get the fonts moved over. Okay, so basically our theme now that we just downloaded, we downloaded the Bootstrap starter theme. In fact, I'm going to rename that so we don't get confused. Just call it new theme. So the next step, what we need to do is actually go ahead and get the HTML from these files and start building out what we want to be our header, our footer, and set up our template BTL so that it loops and writes out the code the way we'd like it. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in my text editor. And as you can see, just flat HTML, nothing amazing. I mean, just downloaded straight from the internet. And what we're going to do is start taking individual pieces of this, like the head section, start to migrate those over into our BTLs. The first BTL, it's usually the easiest to start with, is the head HTML. Make sure that we get all our CSS included, make sure we have all our stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and open this as well in my text editor. And as you can see, one of the nice things we've done is in the starter, we've actually included, a little bit of the dotCMS specific variables. Up here, we're checking to see if it's a URL map. If it's a URL map, we're setting the page title to the URL map title. Down here, we're including the metadata from the page itself to populate the different fields. So we're just giving you a very simple place to start off with your templates. So basically what we want to do is we want to cut and paste all of this into our new sheet and go line by line. Make sure we have everything we need. So we don't need the title, the viewport, the metadata is all up here already, so we don't need that. We don't need the description or author. The bootstraps happens to be, we're already including that, as well as the responsive. Font awesome is something we are going to need to include. So we'll go ahead and cut and paste that here. This is actually a variable that's available in the template designer. And what this is it'll actually build the file path to the file you're actually referencing, or down to your theme. So in our example, what this is going to do is it's going to build the /application /themes /new theme / and then my actual files within the theme files. Theme is already there. I think the last thing we need to do is just include the Google fonts. And this theme, the theme itself actually has the JavaScript down at the bottom, so we'll go ahead and remove the JavaScript from here since the theme's looking for it in the bottom. In the footer, and I think we got everything we need here. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and start with the footer. I'm gonna open that up and come back to my flat HTML file, and I'm going to grab the entire footer, including the JavaScript, and I'm going to cut and paste that into this. Now again, the one last thing I need is this path here. I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste that here to make the path to the specific JavaScript folder. And as you can see here, this theme, you'd probably end up coming back here if we were going to take the time to really build this out completely and replace these with actual polls. So here, for instance, you'd probably do a poll and list your tags that are available in your host. You'd probably, do a poll here and list all the categories available in your hosts. You could even make this a piece of content that could be editable. But for right now, again, this is about building the theme. I think we've got everything we need here. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Next, we're going to open up the head file. And the header is really typically whatever's in the top that's going to be available on every page. Typically your top navigation, site tools, search boxes, things like that. I'm going to come back here to the flat HTML file, and what I would like in the head is pretty much everything from here down, including the top navigation. And I'm going to paste that into here. Now, I don't know if all of you are familiar with our new navigation tool, but we have this new navigation tool, and I'm going to go ahead and leave the code here so I don't have to rewrite this. But basically what this is in the newer version of dotCMS, what we do is we've developed a tool that will allow you to actually pull an object back of all the menu choices and loop over it. For those of you who are familiar with the old system, we used to have a macro that would just return an unordered list. But with today's modern frameworks and JavaScript, where the shortcoming was there is that you couldn't do things like within individual links, individual LIs, be able to drop in the different data toggles, different classes, actually have something displayed differently. So again, new feature in dotCMS is the nav tool, and there's some great documentation in our documentation site on this, so I won't go too much into it, but really is a nice enhancement to the dotCMS. So basically what I'm going to do is cut and paste all this in here. I'm going to come down here, and actually where this unordered list is statically put in here, I'm going to replace that with our navigation tool code. So that's our navigation tool, and I think I got everything. Everything looks good here. So the last file we need to take a look at is the template, and this is kind of, for lack of a better term, where the magic happens. And our template VTL basically determines what couples your theme with the variables that were set in the theme designer or the template designer, and basically outputs the final HTML. So up here, you can see we have the little thing. This is checking to see if it's responsive. If the user said to be responsive, we're going to go ahead and set the device width and all that. But I'm actually going to remove that because I want to go ahead and make sure that my theme is always responsive. Here, again, anyone familiar with the dotCMS has seen this time and time again. This is just a simple include or a dot parse of the head VTL. The next thing we're looking at here is the body. This is just an example. You don't need this, but what we're doing here is we're just giving you a class added to the body just to give the HTMLers or CSS folks a little bit more control over individual templates and themes, so that you could write a cascading class that would treat one page slightly different than another page, and be able to cascade those classes down. We're just including the header. And what I'm going to do is just come back here and make sure my header is in the right place. And it's actually not. As you can see, we have this container here, and the header needs to go inside that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this over, come in here and paste that in, tab that over, and that actually replaces this container. So that's that. The next thing we're doing is we're setting the main column variables and whether we have sidebar. And we're setting that, getting that from the theme layout and setting that variable here. Coming down here, we're checking to see if the sidebar was set. If it was set, we're starting a row and then setting the different variables. We're setting basically two divs, and we're setting the span, whether it was set to 20%. So if it was set to 20%, we're making one 20, the other one, or making one span of 2, making the other one span of 12, and so on down the list. Again, this is an instance where you could change this, where if you wanted to use a larger grid system, something like an 18 grid or 24 grid system, you would be able to come in here and change these classes. And that's really what we're doing, is we're just setting a variable, getting the value of that variable, and then based on that variable, setting the classes that we want to append to the divs as they're written out in the system. Coming down here, we're checking to see if the sidebar is supposed to be on the left. If the sidebar is supposed to be on the left, we go ahead and create the container or the column for the sidebar, and then we write out the container or any of the code that the user in the template designer placed. Then again, we open our body row or our main column, and we exit this loop. If the column was if the sidebar was set to be on the right, then what we do is we actually open up the main body column here, and then begin to loop over our individual rows. So for Bootstraps, because we're nesting, if there is a sidebar, we're going to be nesting our rows. So we're going to put the fluid tag in here, which will make any rows inside this row use percentages rather than fixed widths. Else, we're just going to do the normal row. And again, what we're doing here is we're checking the variable, and based on what the variable is, whether the person chose to make this 100% column, if they made this row or this column within this row 100%, we're adding the span of 12. Again, these are just classes that are specific to Bootstraps. If this were to be done in Foundation, you'd be using the Foundation variables here. 75% and on down. Next, so we're in a loop here, so for each row we're actually spitting out the code and rendering that row here. Then once we're done looping over all our rows that the user has put in the template designer, we actually decide whether we need to close the sidebar. If there was a sidebar, we would close it. If the sidebar was on the right, we would actually close the main column and then print out the sidebar to the right, and then close all the rows and the container, and then again print out our footer. Something important to point out, this needs to be the pre and post process code. This needs to be in this file. If you guys run into any issues creating your own templates, this is a great place to look first. Make sure you didn't accidentally delete this code, but this does need to stay in the template.btl file. So with that done, we're going to go ahead and save that, and I think our theme is complete. So the best way to test it is we're going to go ahead and upload it. And again, we're going to go back to CyberDuck, and I'm going to drag my new theme over. Okay, that's done. Now we're going to come back to our website. And what I'm going to do is actually, again, just edit the template. And I'm going to select my new theme and apply it. You can go ahead and preview it, make sure everything looks all right, make sure all the navs are working, the footer looks good. Checking the mobile devices. Make sure the iPad works. iPhone, make sure the menus all work. seem to be good with that. We're going to go ahead and save and publish that. And we've just downloaded a theme from the website, from, I believe it was Template Monster, or what was it? Or Wrap Bootstraps. And we cut it up and put it into the dotCMS. So I know that was a lot to cover in a very short period of time, but I hope that kind of gives you guys all a good place to start. Again, our documentation has all of this on there. We really encourage you guys to get out there and start making themes, giving us feedback. If you're not on the user forum or the mailing list, I would definitely recommend signing up for either of those. And any feedback we're absolutely happy to listen to and take under advisement. Like I said, this is just the first iteration, just to give you guys a little glimpse into where we kind of see the theme builder going and the template designer going. One of the things we're currently talking about is making the template designer's UI intuitive or smart on the theme. So once you select the theme, in some way we'd be able to know whether the theme designer wanted the user to be able to set the width. So maybe, for instance, that theme I just put up there, I didn't want the end user to be able to set the width. So in a future release, what we're going to do is give you the ability to hide that option so that the end user won't even see it because it doesn't do anything in your specific theme. Maybe even give the ability to override the display variables. So instead of seeing 20%, you could just say, maybe you only want to give them the choice of saying menu left, menu right. So that's one thing we're working on. Another neat thing we've been discussing is adding the theme concept to the advanced templates. So what you would do is when you go to create an advanced template or a hand-coded template, you could actually select a theme and we populate everything but the body of that. So we would include the header, footer, the head HTML in that theme for you. And then that way you would just have to hand code the actual body of the page. Something not specific to the theme builder, but we're also working on and I think there's a beta version of it up already on GitHub. In fact, I know there's a beta version of it up on GitHub, but we are working to finalize it, is a plugin that will allow you to do CSS preprocessors within the dotCMS. So you could upload SAS files or less files, and we would go ahead and compile those on the dotCMS for you. So that's it. One other note, and I'm sure Dean will mention this as well, but we have another seminar or webinar next week at the same time, and Dean's going to be covering probably the second biggest feature added to dotCMS 2.3, which is the time machine. And that's something that I definitely recommend sitting in on.